Welcome to another episode of Hustle and Grit. Today, I've got a very special guest, Khalid Rizkana from Square Yards Realty. Welcome to the episode, Khalid.
Thank you, Harris. Thank you for having me on.
It's always a pleasure. You know what? I want to jump straight into kind of how you got into being a realtor,
Mm,
because I'm looking at your kind of your history and your journey. You have a very rich history. It's not something safe to say that you just started in real estate. So can you give my listeners a little bit about that story about how you kind of ended up where you are today? What was the decision that you, or what was the decision making criteria that you had to kind of be like, all right, I'm gonna become a realtor? Because I usually ask people, did you want to be a realtor right when you knew you wanted to be something, or was this something kind of you transitioned into? Safe to say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that
yeah.
this is a transition for you.
Oh, absolutely. Transition for sure. It was the whole thing was a journey into like knowing what I'm all about. Um, Kind of brief background on me. So I pretty much grew up here since I was 8, and I just looked at my dad, what he did, and
Hmm.
I kind of saw that as the thing to do. And there wasn't something that I was like passionate about like throughout school. So when I got into having to decide, what to do, the first step you usually look at is, like college, university, what are you going to do? That
Hmm.
is supposed to determine your future. Um, so I looked at my dad, he's in accounting. I'm like, okay, let's go with that. I don't really have anything else in mind that I would
Yeah.
to do. And then so I did a diploma in accounting. I started to, look for jobs in accounting. I started to do analytical work. And I quickly kind of saw that this was going to be a boring lifestyle for me. Although, like, accounting is great in terms of like
Yeah.
having that basis because it
Yeah.
helps you in decision making and so on. I understand the importance and nothing against those accountants out there. But I just felt as I got into it more that it really wasn't for me. And it was about, I would say, I did the diploma, I got into university because any accountant, if you want to make it somewhere, you're going to have a designation. And in order to have a designation,
Hmm.
you have to have at least a degree and then some years of experience. So I was doing the degree requirement, and that's when I kind of saw with the advanced accounting courses, they started doing all these things about international financial reporting standards, and I couldn't imagine myself being in a boardroom talking about this in the future. So
FRS.
yeah, IFRS, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So like I really, I mean, and at that point, I didn't really make that decision yet. I had analytical roles throughout, but at that point in time, I was trying to finish my degree, and I was like, okay, what do I like? I like finance and I like marketing. So I started doing more of those courses, and then once I was basically at finishing point in the degree, and this happened late because I got married and so on in the
Hmm.
process. Like, so this degree really took its time. But once I got to that point, I moved to a company that was basically marketing, and it had some client facing aspect to it. So I really liked that. And a year and a bit into that, that's when I decided to get into real estate. It was kind of I'm sorry if I'm rambling, by the way.
No, no,
It
no.
was
It's your story. Yeah.
it was actually I was sitting, like I had these thoughts, like,
Hmm.
what can I do with my life that would be actually like meaningful to me, exciting, actually give me a reasonable like income after retirement and so on.
Yeah.
So I was like, everybody was asleep in my house, and I was sitting there, and like I was like, I never really looked into real estate. I always pictured it was something not for me because it was sales, and I
Mm.
was used to accounting and analysis. But having that client facing role, I was like, let me take a look at this, see how I can get into it. And I figured it was actually pretty easy to get into it. That's why I think a lot of people do get into it. And I literally started sweating because I was like, oh my God, I could have been doing this so much earlier. I'm like, why did I wait so long? So in hindsight, I do like wish I started earlier in terms of the journey, but like, yeah, at that point, I had decided. I got licensed in 2014.
Okay.
My story and getting
Yeah, I mean that's still 9 years. I mean, with real estate and a lot of professions, or real estate is one of the few, actually, not a lot, but there's enough of them where it's easy to get in but hard to stay in. So
yes, absolutely,
that's the
absolutely,
biggest thing. And to your accounting point,
yeah,
it is. I mean, it's boring for some, it's exciting for others, but I understand what you mean. It's like it takes a different part of your brain.
yeah,
Now, my biggest question then is you're looking at like, so you just talked about a few things. You talked about
yeah,
like financial stability to some extent, right? Which is
right,
on everyone's mind when you're looking
right,
for a profession to work in. And you had an accounting job, which I would say is on, I guess, a reasonably safer end. It's boring, but it's safer in
yes,
terms
yes,
of there's predictability in income and predictability in a lot of areas.
right.
What got you to go from there to be like, all right, now I'm going to jump
Let's
into
go
a
into it.
sales role and I don't know what I'm going to make tomorrow. I don't
Yeah,
know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen next month. There is no predictability. There's no nothing. I have to move from basically a something where every 2 weeks there's a sum of money dropped into my account to I eat what I kill type of situation, and I have to
mm.
go there and I have to constantly every day be making sure that I am giving the level of service, and still there is no guarantees of
Guaranteed.
anything.
Oh.
So what
No,
got you to jump into that?
yeah, it was actually even in that regard. I mean, getting the license, it didn't mean that I fully switched into real estate full time. It took a while for me to get into real estate full time because that stability piece was very important. And I think a lot of people, that's what they do. They get into real estate only as a bonus, right? I didn't want to
Mm,
see it as a bonus because I wasn't looking for the one or two deals in the year just to top up my salary. I was looking to make that switch, but it was a difficult switch. A lot of people don't understand that. They come to me and they say, "Oh, I was thinking of getting into real estate," and I stop them and I say, "Okay, what about real estate do you like? Because are
mm,
you getting into it because you think it's easy? Because it's not, right?" And a
yeah,
lot of people don't understand that until they actually get into it.
yeah,
It's literally a business, right? You have to manage your revenue, your expenses. You have to know how to report things. If you do this full time and you plan on buying a property, it's not going to be easy as well, right? Because on one hand, you're trying to lower your income for
mm,
tax purposes, right? Or like count your
yeah.
expenses towards
Optimize
that,
it. Yeah,
right? And then on the other hand, you know, it literally means that you will not be able to buy if you keep lowering your income. You need
yeah,
2 years notice of assessment, like at a good level for you to be able to jump into a property. And even then, like you said, it's not guaranteed income, right? You
yeah,
could be working with a client for 6 months, a year, and not ever see a check. They might even just, change their mind in the
yeah,
middle of it and just say, you know what, I figured out I'm just gonna rent instead, and I'll
yeah,
and I'll buy a car. So
yeah,
like they eliminate the possibility of them actually getting into a house. So it's definitely like it took a long time, and I would say like my full time venture really started about, I would say, like 2.5 years ago. That would be like completely full time, and it
mm,
only came in when I was able to do enough deals that basically replaced my income for a good year and a half, and give me a leeway in terms of like, so I knew I had people to work with, and I had the income to support myself and the family for a good year and a half to go. So you basically need that, and you need to keep pushing. Not that I'm
yeah,
a pushy person, right? But you have to up your lead generation. You have to
yeah.
do the follow-ups. You have to be on top of it, otherwise it will slip for you.
Yeah, I mean it's not pushy. I feel like it's more client or consumer psychology. A lot of people are on the fence. They need a lot of hand holding. So you have to be there to let them know what to expect and all of that. And again, like you said, you could give them everything, and there's no guarantee the next day they go buy a car.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's the worst thing you can do if you're about to buy a house. Don't buy a car.
Yeah, I see it all the time, but like,
Yeah.
how often does that happen? Does that happen often enough where they're trying to buy a house and all of a sudden they buy a big expense? Like, why? What goes in somebody's mind to be
In
able to
their
do
mind.
that? When I see it all, I mean, I don't know what the implications are, to be honest, on the financial
Yeah,
end because I don't see it.
yeah.
But what gets like, how often does something like that happen?
Well, it's not that it happens often, but I think it happens to a lot of people when they all of a sudden they have the money to spend,
Mm,
and buying the house takes a little bit longer than they wanted. So they're kind of like there's a competing
mm,
um like it's either I'm gonna get what I want buying the house, or maybe that thing that I was delaying
yeah,
with buying the car, maybe that's the right time because the house isn't happening right away. And so I did see it happen, but it doesn't happen too often. I think a lot of people are now like more educated when it comes to that.
yeah,
I try my best to educate people that I work with because I feel like the entire time, even after the transaction happens, there's education, right? And I
yeah,
think that's the only thing that really makes people comfortable enough to work with you.
yeah.
That in my experience, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's trust. At the end of the day, it's what you're. I would say selling, and often of people say selling is has a bad connotation to it.
Yeah,
But I don't think so. Selling, as in like if you're genuine and sincere to the person you're selling to, it's nothing. There's nothing wrong with it. But you're selling like trust and peace of mind, so that they can go back to you,
yes,
and they're not second guessing what you're saying. They're essentially paying when they buy a house for your services, but they take your advice and they really kind of understand that this is what we need to implement. But this is a great way to kind of transition to my our kind of second part. What is it to kind of like to work with you? So what is your kind of for lack of better words, client journey? How do you kind of onboard people and bring them through the process, whether it's education or whatever else it is? Especially, I would say, for, I mean, anybody, whether it's first time home buyers or repeat buyers. I think even with repeat buyers, a lot of times you're first time home buyers again, unless you're doing this like every
hmm,
year.
yes,
There's
yeah,
so much changes that you need to be re-educated for everything. And sometimes, I don't know, you'd know better. You could correct me if I'm wrong. It's more difficult with the repeat buyers because the first time home buyers, they're like, you know what, they'll ask a lot of questions, but they're kind of open to understanding. Repeat buyers are like, no, last time I did this, this
yeah,
is what
yeah, yeah. They
happened.
have a reference point.
Yeah.
No, yeah, no, I think you're right in that because yeah, the first time home buyer is definitely like willing to listen a little more.
Hmm.
They are very apprehensive because like this is a very big financial commitment. They've never done this before. The whole thing looks scary to them, so there's a lot of hand holding for sure. But like in terms of the client journey, of course it differs per type of client, right? Like, but generally speaking, I like to have a nice conversation, get to know them as a person, get to know what they're really after, like what are their goals, like what are their timelines. Of course, we'll have to talk a little bit about budget. Uh,
Hmm.
I usually like to see if they've done any type of homework in speaking with someone who can qualify them financially. And then if they haven't, that's when I start to prioritize the steps, right? So, like from our conversation, looks like this is what we're looking at. You want to buy a home in about 6 months. You're in a regular salary employment, good for you, and this is what it'll get you in
Hmm.
my simple calculation. I do advise you to get the qualification and so on. So I basically take them step by step and organize the process for them. I start to look at, the properties that, from a buyer standpoint, that would make the most sense for them, even though they may be leaning towards a specific thing. I'll talk them through. Like, I won't block anyone from seeing a property if they
Hmm.
like insist on seeing it, because that is the most fun part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't want to talk about finances. They don't want to talk about
Yeah.
like paperwork and all that stuff. they want to look at homes and they want to imagine themselves living in those homes, right? So I don't take that away from them, but at the same time, I'll let them see some homes that they kind of like, and I'll tell them, based on what you're telling me before, what do you think about this? Like, how does that fit, your overall plan? Do you see yourself staying here for more than 5 years, or do you feel like you're gonna have to change again? Because as much as it works out for me, like if they buy it for a few years and you know what, we need to sell and buy again, that works out
Yeah.
great for me. But I know I'd rather have them be happy in their home, and when
Yeah.
they feel that, they're gonna want to come back. And I've had that with other people too, like making a good decision and feeling good about it. That's an easy referral, right? So they'll just turn around and say, hey, they all of a sudden remember, hey, my cousin also wants to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it makes life a lot easier, and it makes me happier too. Like I come from a family where we don't have this we don't have the sales gene. We
Yeah.
have like a helping gene. Like we
Yeah.
don't really look to make kind of like money from helping. We just help. But it's a business at the end of the day. So my core is like customer orientation, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure that they're happy, and I feel like when I achieve that, then the rest follows.
Yeah. No, I mean, as long as if they're content, and they're going out and they know that they're fulfilled with what they got with the experience. And sometimes being happy, what I find is, it's giving them that advice where it's like, you know what, this house you may like right now, but long term, this is what you need. And they figure out after, like, right, it may make sense at that moment as well, but it makes more sense as it kind of go along and they
Yes.
kind of realize it. But you know what, the one thing that you said where the best part of your, for example, job is to like to see the houses and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This is why I say, like the realtors have the best job, because for us as real estate lawyers, we're on the last leg of this. We're the
Yes.
most boring people. People do not want to see us. They're so irritated. They're just like, all right, let's sign this.
Like get
But the
this done.
house, it's like that's where they feel like this is where they're chasing their dream. They're building it. They see it. So
Yeah.
more of an emotional experience. So in a lot of ways, I'm jealous of you guys, going out and being able to give them those dreams, give those people, because it feels good. It feels good when you see
Yes.
somebody and they have a smile on their face because they're like, you just showed them the best house and everything works out. It's like a very gratifying feeling.
Yeah. It's Yeah, I'll accept that, like the the little jealousy there. No, I do see that we do have an advantage in that regard. At the same time, like you can also see like a million houses, and
Yeah.
you know
No,
what I mean.
no.
So it does have its drawbacks as well. But like, uh, yeah, I think one of the best feelings is not only that you like the house, but when you know other people like it too, and
Yeah.
you're able to get it
Yeah.
regardless, right? That's like that feeling of victory. You got what you wanted, so
Yeah.
that's also a nice bonus.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I'm not saying it's like every profession has its challenges,
Yes, for sure.
and one of the real estate, for example, like just being able, like I think the past, not past year, but I think in 2022, even 2017 was a time where I wasn't jealous of realtors because it was
Nah.
very difficult.
Yes,
It was
yes,
difficult because you could find the perfect house and it was just like it was priced below market so that you're going in blind and you just have to go into a bidding war and there's like 30, 40 offers and I've had realtors who said that they've over a course of 4 or 5 months put in 70 offers, nothing accepted. So
yeah,
it got crazy. Now though, I feel like it's a great market to buy because I mean maybe I'm biased, but I feel like what I find funny is 2022, and this is a great segue, but 2022 it was like you're getting into a bidding war. So I mean, beginning of 2022, largely 2021, you're getting into bidding wars. Everybody's like, I just gotta. It's like a gold rush, right?
right.
I gotta jump in. People are going in without any financing conditions, no home inspection condition, nothing. Now when you can step back, breathe a little, right? And like actually put in a very good like offer, right? Negotiate the price, do a lot of things. People are kind of like, yo, I don't know if this is the right time to buy.
Yeah, yeah, actually, that's spot on. Like the way the market shifted, and I mean, like honestly, like when has it ever happened that the market shifts except when the government gets involved, right? So, like you
Yeah,
mentioned, 2017, government got heavily involved, and I was listening to like I like to listen to podcasts, real estate
yeah,
investing, all kinds of stuff, and they literally say it takes 1 year from an event happening for people to adjust and start
yeah,
to normalize again. So that's kind of what we saw with 2017. It took about that long, a little bit less actually, to get kind of back into the market. And then with what happened in 2022, I mean, you had 8 consecutive
yeah,
rate hikes, by the Bank of Canada. That is like, in my understanding, I don't think it's ever happened.
yeah.
So
It's
unprecedented.
unprecedented.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's completely warranted that like the market has to shift, has to change a little
yeah,
bit, right? The way 2022 started, it was absolutely like crazy. Just from January, I felt like it was not going to be sustainable. At the same time, like it all depended on rates. So like I felt like if rates go up, that's when you'll have a change.
mm,
If rates don't, then everyone's homes are raising together at the same time. It's kind of like you're on the same waters.
yeah,
Have a home, you're raising together. So it really didn't matter what the prices were, right?
mm,
Because you're like if you're selling a home and you're moving up, that's
yeah,
just a new level.
yeah,
So so yeah, absolutely. Those times were also very difficult, right? Like dealing with people at that time. People like to move in groups. So when they see that everyone's pulled out, it's like I don't want to be the only
yeah,
person in. Like they don't want to
yeah,
feel dumb or like they're uneducated. But the reality is the best time to move is kind of like against the weight. The I don't know if you want to say against the weight, but not with everybody else, right? Like you want to be one of the few buyers so
yeah,
that you can get your way instead of one of many buyers so that
yeah,
you're always competing.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's well said, but I feel like you said, like it's just people find comfort when there's other bidders too, because they feel
Yes,
like
yes,
somebody else wants this house, so therefore I should want it too.
right,
Whereas, like, if nobody else wants it, do I really want it? So, what
yeah.
kind of, I guess, do you have any kind of advice psychologically for people to at least mentally prepare themselves when they're in certain markets and how to deal with it? And like a market like right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. So there's uncertainty to a lot of people, right? There's uncertainty in terms of our interest rate is going to keep going up, our price is going to keep falling. What's going to happen? What's kind of your advice to people who are looking at that market and wondering whether they should enter the market or what they should be doing?
Okay. Well, I mean, right now, it's actually shifted quite a bit. So like it's a noticeable shift since you can say the latter part of March into April. Like people are jumping back into the market, but general advice, I think it was very well said with Warren Buffett,
Hmm.
who said basically, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful.
Yeah.
So you basically have to take advantage of what's given to you, and he never stops buying. And this is like
Yeah.
one of the richest people in the world. So so the idea is even in financial markets, you only realize a loss when you sell, right? Like
Hmm.
that is if a loss exists. And we're talking about real estate. So real estate is a long-term play. There are more and more people. They're not making any more land. Land
Yeah.
is finite, right? So eventually, I mean, like look at the basis of our economics. You have just last year 1 million people were brought into Canada, and
Yeah.
about 40 something, 45 or so percent come into Ontario. We're not building enough. So our story is always a lack of supply and high demand. That demand is, even if it takes a break and it looks like it's not there, it's there. It's just
Yeah.
waiting to come out.
Yeah.
So you have to realize that this is what it is. People will be buying and people will jump in as soon as they feel comfortable. Do you want to be one of those guys that comes in at the back of the line, or do you want to be kind of at the front of the line? I
Yeah.
think that's really what I have to say there.
Yeah, no, I feel like 100%. I agree with you. A lot of people, I think, look at like the states and they're like, oh yeah, well over there the house market is going to crash and we're kind of going down, so it might be the same, but it's not. It's
No.
not. It's an illusion because the state has several different markets. We do not have as many markets, and the immigration to the proportion of the population is insane. I was reading like to the effect of what you just said with the new immigration. I think in the last 6 months, the amount of immigration coming in was equivalent to 1.2% of the overall population. That's an insane amount.
Wow.
That's an
Yeah.
insane amount,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like you're if you wait for other people and to jump back in, or if anything's kind of you're trying to wait for the prices to settle. Thing is when the prices settle, they're not going to settle. They're going to start going back up, and
Yeah.
by the
It's
time,
yeah.
yeah,
No, no, absolutely. It's momentary. It's
yeah.
very momentary.
Yeah, and if you think you're going to see the bottom of the market, the only time you're going to see the bottom of the market is when it's going back up. That's the only
Yeah.
time you're going to know the bottom of the
That's when you
market.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to go back up much faster than it came down. Like we saw, like I don't know, I feel like, and maybe you can put some shed some light on this. Last few months, it's been crazy. They're everywhere. You're kind of like, oh yeah, the prices of houses went down X%, and then it's going even more, or whatever it is. And I felt like a lot of it was doom and gloom. I feel like maybe overall certain pockets definitely got overheated, but I don't think prices fell across the board in every single neighborhood in even the province of Ontario. Forget about like all of Canada, just in Ontario. I don't think they fell like in every single neighborhood. I think that
No,
some
you're
some
right.
stabilized, some could have gone up as well. What's
You're
what's
right.
your opinion on that?
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. So I mean, it's a very logical thing, and what happens? I mean, it was a very awkward and weird thing that people did with COVID, is that they started to buy outside the city core where their jobs were, because
Hmm.
now they had the work from home ability, right?
Yeah.
But we knew that eventually that would come back in some, like maybe not 100%. You have to
Yeah.
work from the office, but in some, I think in most offices they're gonna require at least 2 or 3 days from the office, right? So
Yeah.
those long commutes, if you like moved an hour and a half out, of the city core because you want to, have a larger home. You were relying on this work from home being a forever thing, and now realize that this is not the case. So a lot of those people will start to come back.
Hmm.
Some of them will not be able to replace those jobs with local jobs to their now residents,
Yeah.
right? So that's where we'll see that movement come back. The location always, real estate is really about location more than anything else. So the location will continue to drive the price, where the heat map you can kind of look at,
Hmm.
right? Like, so where the prices are increasing the most. And then that, coupled with, other things that are happening, right? So like where you might have a location outside the GTA that is also getting the kind of job supply, right? So like
Hmm.
there are big companies moving into the area. There's some more development going into the area. Those will have better resistance to price drops. But other than that, that movement, I mean, we can always expect the core to be the hottest areas, and then
Yeah.
the tertiary markets will, you know, they're gonna start receding a little bit. I don't think it's happened yet, but we're starting to see that movement back.
Okay. And then I guess, I mean, a lot of this is predominantly houses on the secondary market. So the primary market in new construction, we've heard that a lot of builders have just, at least there's noise that a lot of builders have just kind of stopped new builds because the sales have been just really low. Is it, right now, okay, what's in your opinion, can you actually go to a builder and negotiate a price, or have they just come down themselves? Like, what is that arena kind of like compared to the secondary market?
Yeah, so I feel that the pre-construction market, so that those new homes are, like you said, kind of the primary market. I feel like there's a little bit of a lag there as well.
Hmm.
There are some builds, like people will rush to the low rise segment of that market. The low rise being the townhomes, semis, detached,
Hmm.
uh, because those are the more desirable family type homes, right? But a lot of builders who are still, sticking to their timelines and sticking to their projects, since last year, we're giving concessions, giving cashback, giving all kinds of
Yeah.
incentives to be able to get into the market and sell their units. So that's still in play. I don't think it'll be in play for too much longer because, and it's not. This is not a sales pitch. It's the
Yeah.
reality is, as the market heats up, you'll see it in the
Yeah.
resale side first, and that's what we're seeing. And as that picks up to a point where you can basically say there's too much competition, all of a sudden it will switch over to the pre-con side, because that's where you can guarantee a certain price, right? Of
Yeah.
course, not even guarantee a certain price for too long, because as builders realize that they can get more, they
Yeah.
they reserve more units, they hold them back and release them later. So definitely, it's a first mover type of market. If you if you're in a position where you have some cash but you don't want to get into a mortgage at this point in time, then pre-con is definitely a good play for you, because you will move with the market, and not have the debt to worry
Yeah.
about for some years ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here's a crystal ball question then.
Ah,
Um,
crystal ball. Bring it
so,
on, brother.
so, when do you think you're gonna have a turnaround in the promotions or the incentives that the builders have? Do you think that we're gonna see a turnaround, a serious turnaround by the end of this year? Is it gonna be next year? Are you already seeing it? When do you think you're gonna have something where it's seriously kind of the tide is turning and these incentives are being kind of pulled back slowly?
Yeah. I think it's going to be related to the rate as well, because like we can say that like it could be a little earlier than like a rate decrease, but most people, economists, other people who've been in real estate for a very long time and have seen those cycles, most people can kind of predict that early, 2024, there will be a rate decrease. So I don't think it's going to happen this year in terms of a rate decrease, but you could see the movement of pre-con get better throughout the summer, actually, and then definitely when you do have a rate decrease, that's when things will like explode again,
Yeah,
because people will understand that
that's a
the
green light.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
no, what are we waiting for? Like, it
yeah,
got cheaper again, let's go, right?
yeah,
So I think that's what's about to happen. Bank of Canada will kind of keep us guessing from announcement to announcement.
yeah,
Next one is, I think, June 7th. So if they hold again, that will increase, the confidence even more. They don't even have to drop anything. If they just
yeah.
hold, if they keep holding, the confidence is naturally increasing.
Yeah, because it's not. There's no more, and I feel like the people that are kind of waiting to see what happens, they should also understand there's tons of other people waiting to see what happens. I don't
Yes,
think there's a lack
absolutely.
of capital in the market. The capital's
No,
just like on standby, and
yeah,
as soon as you get those green signals, everybody's just gonna come pouring right back in.
right. And like, to pull the conversation back a bit, like we talked about, people coming into the country. By the way, these people are highly educated
Yeah,
and they have money. So
yeah,
they will be participants in the market from the buy side, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is just a temporary holdover.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually been one of the main reasons why Canada's bringing in people, is because they want to increase GDP.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the thing. Like, they're not going to be bringing in people and then increasing the rate at the same time to a debilitating level. They
Yeah.
want to make sure that these people are actually productive and they're able to get jobs here and be, like, spend money.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm definitely bullish in that standpoint, because the mechanics are there.
Yeah.
I'm not being hopeful. I'm just seeing the mechanics.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. And I feel like if you know how the economy works, if you know how global economy works, how the Canadian economy works, and the different factors, I mean, a lot of our real estate has, even in the past, it's always the driving factor is immigration, because we're not building things as quickly as families are being produced by Canadians and the amount of immigration coming in. It's not just a speculation game. It's like everybody has to have a place to live, right? Which is why it's driving like the prices to going up. And this is also why I think, and this is a whole different conversation, maybe for a different podcast, but in Toronto, they just had changed the law where it's easier to build several units. So it's like these changes are going to come because you have to. There's just not enough place for people to live. And the other thing is also like, I mean, most places, if you look in the States, when the market tanks, rents tank too. Here, rents didn't tank. They went up.
No. Yeah.
So market's strong.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because these people coming in, they don't have like it's Benjamin Tal, chief deputy economist of CIBC World Markets. He basically says, like, these people are coming in, they don't have their homes on their back. They have to
Yeah.
rent or buy,
Yeah.
and a lot of our buyer pool that is internal to our market opted to rent because they saw the rates increase. So they
Yeah.
would have sold, started renting. So you have a very strong buyer pool. Renter pool.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, yeah. So there's no instance where I see like rents also coming down. Um, it's like all of it's getting more expensive. If you can afford to buy now, it's better than you trying to buy later, because like, I don't really foresee like a
Yeah.
massive price discount in the near future. And even if that was the case, let's just say that, for argument's sake, there was a massive rate hike in the near future and things tanked, like prices dropped because they had to. Affordability was
Yeah.
horrible. It'll only benefit you if you are, large in your cash position, right? Like,
Yeah.
how much cash do you have? Those are the only people that will benefit. Your equity will also go down. So
Yeah.
it's not that you could just buy it for less. You have to be able to afford the payments at this
Yeah.
higher rate.
Yeah. No, 100% agree with you. Thanks for coming on. I'm gonna wrap it up.
You're more than
Uh,
welcome.
if any of my viewers want to get in touch with Khalid, I'm gonna have his contact information below. Reach out to him. I mean, wonderful conversation. Any last words before we sign off?
No, thank you so much for having me on. It was enjoyable, and I'd love to do it again.
No, my pleasure, man. Definitely having you on again.
So, sounds good. Thank you so much.